this session is our keynote panel to introduce you to some fellow extraordinary first gens and give you an opportunity to learn about their experiences. Each of their unique paths led them here to tech, and I'd like to take a moment to thank each of them for sharing their stories and their paths in tech as a first gen. So for this session, please feel free to interact with each other and start a dialogue using the chat feature. We also take questions that you have in the second half of today's session, so please submit them in the Q&A box. And when you are sending your chats to the chat feature, just make sure it's going to everyone so you can start that conversation, all right? So to kick us off, I would love for each of our panelists, if they could start by sharing their name, their role at HubSpot, and answer this question. What does being a first gen mean to you? And I will go to Alessio first. Thank you, Alessio, for being here.
All right, thank you for having me. So my name is Alessio, and at HubSpot, I lead the North America solution engineering and solution architect teams. I've been at HubSpot for about 6.5 years. What does being first gen in tech means to me? So I was born and raised in Italy, left Italy when I was about 23 after graduating from college. So it's been 10 years since I've been living abroad with a language that is not mine. So in that sense, it's been the first person in my family to really like live in a different country and kind of also building a career in tech. Not the first person from my family to have a college degree, but the first one to have a computer science degree and just build my career in tech.
Thank you, Alessio. Yesenia, let's go to you next.
Awesome. Thank you, Morello. Hi, everyone. I am Yesenia. I am a talent sourcer for the North America sales recruiting team here at HubSpot. Been with HubSpot over a year. I would say that first gen for me is super important. It means like the first person that's coming from a migrated family. So I am the first person in my family to go into corporate America and have been breaking barriers ever since, coming from banking to the beverage industry, pharmaceutical sales, and now breaking into the tech space here at HubSpot. And it's been a whirlwind for me. I am one of the first in my entire family to break into tech. So it's definitely been a journey here on my side. So super excited to be joining you all today.
Thank you, Yesenia, for being here. Appreciate. Mohammed, let's go to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I've been at HubSpot for almost 4 years now. I'm the technical lead of the cookie management team. So I work with software engineers and I code too, and then I mentor them, stuff like that. I was raised in Senegal, and what does being first gen mean to me in tech specifically? For me, it means that like I become the de facto IT guy for my whole family. Even if like they have anything that bugs, it's like just call them, and I'm just literally I don't know any of this, and they're just like I need to fix everything and then be able to take care of stuff. But otherwise, yeah, it's been for me. I'm not the first one who graduated college in my family, but it means a lot to just like be in tech and being able to have those connections and then just like, yeah, just keep on growing and learning. So we'll see.
Mohammed. I also share that, you know, as I said, I'm Morello Soranzo. I was born and raised in Brazil and moved to the US. So that makes me first gen here. I'm the first to come here. And my parents also did not go to college. So that makes me first gen from that point. And being in tech, I think I'm still figuring it out because I just joined HubSpot 2 months ago, you know, from the education field. So in many ways, I'm still kind of dealing with that imposter syndrome that some of us have to, you know, kind of face. And but I've, you know, finding my way here. So just wanted to share that too. So Mohammed, I'm gonna pass the next question first to you. Well, actually, before I go to that, so for our panelists, raise your hand if before you started in tech, you knew that a role like the one that you're in existed. Was that something that you thought was available for you in tech? Yeah, for me, no. Mohammed, do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for me, my role was a software engineer. So I went to college studying computer science and math. So it was always like the role was there. I didn't know that I could get it, but the role was there. And so it was my North Star to like trying to be a software engineer and get in the field and see how it feels.
Okay. Yesenia, Alessio, anything about like why do you say that you didn't know that it existed for you in this environment?
I was about to say I was the complete opposite because I did computer science in school, and out of it, I knew exactly that I did not want to be a developer. Neither would have been a good one. So I was kind of struggling. Like I just moved to London, trying to figure out like my path and my a job that I could do within my background, my education. Kind of the typical like you apply to 1,000 different jobs, doesn't matter what, trying hoping that something will stick. And eventually like I got this role of like technical account manager or like pre-sales engineer, where basically you need to be like sociable person, you like to travel, you need to know code but don't necessarily need to write code. And I was like, sign me up. And I didn't know that that would have been honestly the beginning of my career 10 years later.
How about you, Yesenia?
Be quite honest, I was always in sales. So I'm pretty sure that I knew there was sales in tech, but I'm a talent sourcer. Didn't even know that was a role that you could do, and just sourcing new passive talent that's out there and keeping a diverse pipeline is something that's really important to me in my current role and in my trajectory here at HubSpot. But no idea that that was something that could potentially be a role and something I could be doing proactively every day. So
Right.
definitely something new for me.
Well, thanks everyone for sharing that. And then I'll kick it off to everyone still. What made you apply to a role at a tech company? What motivated you to make that jump? Alessio, do you have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I stumbled upon a little bit given my background, but especially when I came to the US, I was working for a British company at the time because I moved to London initially. And then through that company, I moved to the US. I kind of wanted to be in a startup, one of those American tech companies that you hear about, that you see in the news, that you watch movies about. I've always fantasized about like working for Google, Apple. Honestly, that was my incentive to like really try to get into that world, which I found obviously with HubSpot, and I'm very happy to be here, still here, 6.5 years later.
That's awesome. I mean, we're so happy that you found us too. Mohammed, how about you?
What made me apply? I'd say when I was in college, I was doing research with my professor. So I had the like little stipend and everything, but that could not pay for the loans. So it was just like, okay, industry or college, and then ended up just applying to industry. And I've been loving it since. So
Rest is history. Awesome. Yesenia?
Great question. I am actually a non-traditional hire. I'd say I didn't do the college route. I did some college, but I had a lot of skill set, development over years of professional work. And I'm from New York City originally, so the dream of working for a company and a tech company in Manhattan was always there for me. Transparently relocated to Orlando, Florida recently, a couple years back. So thought that dream had died. This is not a tech city. So, but when the world went remote, I felt really, really compelled to kind of research more about different tech companies. And I landed at HubSpot, and I made it a goal of mine to interview, get hired, and just break that barrier of jumping into the tech industry for sure.
Really courageous, Yesenia. Thank you for sharing that story. Absolutely. So for the next questions I have for you all, I'm gonna select each one of you to answer that. And if there's anything else that you all want to add to what was said, then feel free to do that as well. But Mohammed, I'm gonna start with you first. So how does being first gen help you in your work? And what advantages does being first gen give you, or how have you used it to your advantage? How have you used that part of your identity to your advantage?
I'd say how it has helped me with work is there's something that like people don't say, like you can be in the background of like, I'm a computer scientist, I'm a developer, I write code. But then again, when you get to the actual job, you see that it's just people skills, and then like you need creativity, you need to think outside of the box. And that is something you get by like having people around there not in tech, and like you get to see the different applications of like how tech would apply to this and that, and like the different work jobs you've taken before you were in tech. And that way like you can get that mindset and thought process and bring it into computer science, which it adds diversity. And it's been documented that diversity actually helps a lot with any group or any team, and you just end up being a creative thinker, which is quite helpful.
That's great. And Mohammed, I have to say, I connect with what you just said so much, because one thing I didn't share is that I actually got my bachelor's in computer science and went to education and kind of made my way back, right? So, but at that time, I confess I didn't have kind of the mentors and folks telling, like, helping me understand that like computer science or tech is like you're solving people's problems, right? Like you're solving through technology. And that's what I love to do. But for me, I was thinking, no, I want to solve actual people's problems. And I wanted into education for that reason, right? And it took me 15 years to realize, that like you also saw, we learned so much in tech about, thinking like, step by step and all that. And yeah, so just wanted to say I connect very much with what you said. I wish we had that conversation, maybe like 15 years ago. Wonderful. Thank you, Mohammed. Alessio, for you here. So what are the downsides? Have you faced any particular challenges because you are first gen, and what have you done to overcome them?
I mean, where do I begin? Plenty of challenges. I would say probably the biggest one, especially in the sense of like first gen, in terms of being the first one to immigrate and live in a different country, is living with a language that is not yours. That's probably never gonna leave me. It's something that just I carry with every day. It is a challenge in the sense that you really need to, I've learned, and now I've been trying to help other people in the same situation as me, to just accept the fact that it's on you to make it work, and it's on you to really like be kind to yourself, and accept the fact that like eventually like you are the hardest person that you're gonna have on against yourself. So in that sense, it's been challenging. There were times, I still remember, like if it was today, my first interaction with my supervisors back in London, where I couldn't understand anything. I would avoid talking on the phone like the plague. Like I would literally like do anything not to talk on the phone with someone because I couldn't catch any body language or anything. And, thinking that 10 years later now I work remote and my job is working on the phone. It's crazy. For me, it's unimaginable. But it's really like sticking through, and always like it forced me to be overly motivated because nobody else would give it to me. And if I felt like a failure, then everybody else around me would feel like it was a failure. So it was up to me to like really push myself. So there are downsides that like push me to like step up and really be overly motivated in my life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anything to add, Nathaniel or Mohammed? So Mohammed, coming back to you, I think here you might have the $1 million question here. So what is your response to someone asking, how do I get my foot in the door? If someone comes to you with that, like, what do you tell them?
I would tell them, try, keep trying, and talk to people that have been there. Like one of the things that I've learned, and I learned that a lot by like just asking people that I see in positions that like I would want to be in eventually, and just ask like, how did you get there? And when you ask that question, funny enough, every single one of them has struggled. Like so far, what I've from what I've seen so far, every single one have had like the struggles that you're running into right now, like lack of confidence, not being able to like think that you're there and stuff like that. And they will just tell you they didn't know what they were doing. It was just a mess. And then as time went on, they figured it out, and with experience comes like you become confident in what you do. So my way of doing it is just try, get in there, be comfortable, be uncomfortable, and then just, stay through it, grit, and then you get it.
And get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. Like,
yes, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do, but yeah.
It is. Wonderful. Thank you, Mohammed. Anything to add, Yesenia or Alessio?
I do have something to add. I love how Mohammed said, get comfortable and try. Like I said, I am a non-traditional hire. So in that sense of, not having a tech background, not going, that direction specifically, but trying. And I know imposter syndrome can come and creep up on us at all points of our career. But just try. Like if you don't try, you will never know. So always take that leap and always believe in yourself. And even when self-doubt kicks in, like even make a list of, like I've been recently working on like superpowers, make a list of like some certain skills and attributes that you have, and, what could you bring to the table and why you, can move forward and apply for that role.
I love that. We all have superpowers for sure. Go ahead, Alessio.
I'd add to that, like, it's important to say to yourself, like, you are enough. A lot of people in first gen in tech, first generation in general, like, you're part of minorities, you feel like you're an outlier, and you just build that in your, like, it is the reality, but you also like amplify that in your head a lot. It's actually important to believe in yourself and say, like, I'll get there, like, I'll prove everybody else wrong. And when you do that, things will come your way.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for contributing to these important questions. Ethan, I'm coming to you now. So what has your family or community done to either help or hinder you on your career path in tech? And then what advice might you give to somebody in a similar situation, either with leveraging their community or overcoming those objections?
Well, love that question. My community, transparently, like my parents have no idea. I mean, they all know technology, but they have no idea like working in this space, understanding what it requires to work remotely. Let's be honest, a lot of our families probably come and interrupt our days when we're working because they have no idea what our ins and outs are. But I do have a supportive mother who has always told me to reach for the sky as high and as far as I want to. And I always like attribute a lot of my success to her, just letting me know that I can go as far as I want and believing in myself. So she gave me a lot of that self-confidence from a young age. And I think that has helped me grow into the person I am today. Advice I can give, I have seen the opposite side, even just chatting with other HubSpotters transparently on, families not being super supportive when it comes to your career goals or understanding what we do. So I would say, maybe even finding articles. I recently translated a work that I did here at HubSpot that I could share with my mother in Spanish so she could understand a little bit more about what my day-to-day looks like, or some projects I'm working on that I could share with her. So she can understand a little bit more about what I do, especially because when she chats with our family and friends, she speaks Spanish. People ask her all the time, what does your daughter do? I am her pride and joy. I'm her only daughter. But she doesn't know how to articulate that in Spanish. So I've been able to kind of help her. And like I said, been really supportive with her. But yeah, I would say if your family's not being as supportive, or your community, just know that there is a lot of resources out there. I know that a lot of us post on LinkedIn. Even within our organization, we love to post different things on how to join the tech industry for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And you seemed like you were reading my mind, because my next question to you, Yesenia, was going to be, how do you explain what you do to your parents and family? So I think you answered that really well. So I would love to kick that to maybe Alessio or Mohammed. Do you all have any stories to share with us about how you shared with your parents or family what you do?
Shall I go first, Mohammed?
Okay. How do I share with my mom? It's complicated. I don't know. I open my laptop and I put it there, and I'm just like, this is what I do. And I sometimes, like, when extended family comes around and they assume that I do IT, I'm just like, yep. I don't fight the fight. I'm just like, yep, that's what I do. It's okay. I'll fix your iPhone. But for my dad, it's easy because like he understands a little bit of the field, so I get to talk to him about like just writing code and stuff like that. But yeah, it's generally hard for me to explain it. So I'm just like, I work in the tech field. It's fine.
And leave it at that.
For me, I'll keep it simple. Pretty much my family knows when I was an individual contributor that I was an engineer working with computers. There was no point trying to explain what a pre-sales, a solution engineer does, because honestly, even most people don't know what a solution engineer is or does, and that's okay. I don't blame you. I always say, like, if I stop anybody on the street, 9 people out of 10 won't know what a solution engineer is, and that's okay. They'll just get stuck on the engineer part. Or I say that I work in sales. And then since I've been into people leadership and management, they know that I'm a manager. That's pretty much as far as I go with that. And I'm okay. I kind of gave up trying to explain the in and out of what my day-to-day and my actual job.
Yeah, and usually the engineering resonates with most folks, right? Like saying that sometimes is enough.
It's the typical part where, like, especially from different cultures where you have those labels of those 5, 7 jobs that like are the jobs, like the lawyer, the doctor, the engineer. And like your grandma kind of like grows up saying, hey, my grandson is an engineer. And as long as she can say that, then she's happy. I'm not gonna try to like convince her otherwise now that she's 80. So I'll just take it.
Unless I'm going to stay here with you for the next question. How do you define success, or how have you defined success for yourself, and what drives you to succeed?
Yeah, this is a loaded question to say the least. I've always defined success as a byproduct of respect and impact. To me, being successful means being respected, which is it kind of like is not as surprising that then I ended up into like leadership and especially impact, more so than metrics or anything else. I've also learned what that means for my own self. Like, I need to respect myself. I need to feel like I'm providing impact to other people, and especially trying to really like make a difference, as big or small as it is for people that I work with, which is what I love about an environment like HubSpot, where I don't just feel like I come to work and do my job. I do feel I have impact on people around me, even before I was into leadership. And that to me is just how I define success.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alessio. I feel like this question is big enough that I want to open up for Yesenia and Mohammed to share their thoughts as well.
I'll just act on the impact section of it. It's just like, as you're working and you're growing and you're becoming better, you're gonna have an impact on people. Right? That's generally how it works. Like someone pulls you, your manager is gonna pull you, someone else is gonna pull you, other people around you are gonna pull you up. And having that impact to me is like amazing for success. And you get to do it more and more as you grow. And for me, one of the main things is like, if you're at a job or anywhere else, if you're being challenged and learning, then that's a good spot to be in. If you're not, then just move, because like, what do we do in life, right? Do we stay stagnant and stay the same place, or do we just keep growing and learning and just being better? So to me, it's like, as long as I can keep learning and growing, then that works for me. And heavily, if I have a positive impact on other people's lives, then it works for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Kind of touching on very similar to what Mohammed said, like impact is important to me. I think one of the most important things is for me that defines success is always learning and growing. Like we're always expanding, learning, but impacting people. Transparently, I pivoted over to as a talent sourcer about 7 months ago from sales at HubSpot. And one of the main reasons I did that was to impact the business when it came to our DIMB goals. And I felt that was more of a life purpose for me. So it spoke volumes to me on how much I can impact not just my life, but multiple different people's lives, and coming into HubSpot or even in this type of panel that I never thought I'd be a part of. But so I'd say having that impact over the last 7-8 months already has been tremendous. I actually had someone join that will be joining HubSpot that's coming in that I was able to bring into the company from my outreach. So that impact that I've been creating is affecting me as far as like a life purpose goes, for sure.
Great. Thank you all three for sharing that. Impact is definitely huge. And I think you all have left great impact here at HubSpot for sure, from what it seems. So Yesenia, what's something you've worked on here that you're proud of? And I think you've already touched on that a little bit, but would you like to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. So as far as something that I'm really proud of is I worked on our wiki post last month that I posted on. It's called, or for anyone that's not a part of HubSpot, it is like our internal Google, I guess you could say, right? So where I was very, very vulnerable in this blog, never thought I'd be able to write a blog within an organization that I work for. So the fact that I was able to kind of write that, be transparent, and share my experiences on non-traditional internal mobility within the HubSpot organization I have had so many different sales team members ask me like how I did it, what did I think about, did I get support, all these initial questions, that it inspired me to just kind of write my experience and write a blog about what we should be thinking about when thinking about a non-traditional internal mobility in here at HubSpot or in any organization at that point. So definitely proud of writing this blog and the, the outreach it's seen. People are reading it, responding to it. And I've had team members that identify as first gen as well let me know that I do identify as a Latinx or Latina, that they feel empowered with me sharing my story. So thank you to those team members, because they inspired me to, put out my story for sure. So that's something I'm really proud of.
It was an amazing post. Congrats on that, on doing that. It was, yeah, it definitely impacted me. I want to tell you that right now. Yeah, thank you for writing that. And then Alessio, I'll kick off our final question now, formal final question here before we get to our audience's questions. But I'll start with you. How have you found ways to connect with folks at work? And how did you find your community, your people here in tech?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, I think it's something that has changed a lot over the last 18 months because of the pandemic. I was based in the office in Boston. I started HubSpot there. That was an easy way for me to connect and network with other people. I would say also just sometimes I would say even now in general, like being vulnerable is probably the best way that you can do to connect with people. And what I mean by it is there have been situations in over the last few years where there have been moments where I decided to be extremely vulnerable, not just within my team, the company, but even just on LinkedIn. And people sometimes respond well. It could go both ways. So that's why you need to be comfortable opening up and being vulnerable. And honestly, it's something that you should do for your own self. But that was a way for people to just either be inspired by what I said and what I wrote, but also to reach out to me and building a connection. It's not easy. I think honestly, it's something that I personally struggle with also, just keeping a network, nurturing that network. But I would also say one advantage that people that are first gen have is the natural curiosity and the removing the assumption that you know the other person, because so many times that you leave the opposite, the downside of that, of people making assumptions on you because they don't know you, because they don't know different. And so naturally you become a little bit more open just to not make assumptions. And so to just ask the simple questions that people don't ask about, like, what you do, what you like, what you don't like, where you're from, like questions that sometimes people even feel weird about, and instead they're supernatural.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alessio, for sharing that. Yesenia, Mohammed, anything to add before we transition to our audience questions? Anything?
I think that was pretty well put. So, yeah.
Oh,
I just saw you both going like this. I'm like, all right, he's preaching right now. Yesenia?
I would say, like, to Alessio's point, it's really important to, to connect with different teammates. I am like famous for joining so many different groups, Slack groups that we have, just to like read what every group is about, understand if you might not identify as something in that group, but you can be an ally, and reaching out to different teammates or different parts of the business, I think has been really helpful for someone like me. I've just been in HubSpot for over a year. I just made my year, but I've met so many people in the last year just by asking questions and being vulnerable and transparent, just saying like, hey, I would love to learn a little bit more about what you do. The wiki post that I posted, I transparently had no idea how to do the back end of that. And I had someone at HubSpot who we've become pretty good work teammates, and we don't cross-functionally work together, but because she helped me with this wiki, we were able to chat, and she lives in New York, and we kind of connected on that level. So I've been making more colleague friends here at HubSpot just with different ways and asking like for help for things and being vulnerable in that way. So just work on being a little bit more vulnerable and understanding that we're all kind of going through very similar things working remotely for sure.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point that made me think of something like sometimes you get stuck in the idea of like, I have to network. And people like are very robotic when they come and like, okay, we're networking. And in reality, like they don't even apply active listening, they just don't listen. So even just having that normal, like genuine curiosity of understanding, and something that I tell everyone is like, the best way to just build your brand or build a network is to make a really good impression, just be the best you can be with every interaction with anyone. And I know that we're all busy at work, and sometimes you get people that don't know you that ask something, even just take that opportunity, like that is networking in itself. Just be the best you can be a nice human, and you know, karma always pays off. So I'll come back in some ways.
Yeah, and I think unless you're connecting with folks on like, you know, same interest, or like you said, like the curiosity, like, oh, I saw you posted about this, right? So like like using Yesenia as an example here, like, oh, Yesenia wrote that blog, like this has been my experience in, right? Like sharing some of those commonalities, that's a quick way to make that connection. So that way the network doesn't seem so artificial for sure. Yeah, yeah, wonderful. And we have great questions here on the chat. So I'm going to transition us to that portion of our program. So continue to send us your questions. Hopefully we'll get through them all here. But actually, I'll move on to one that actually segues really nicely into what we just said, that had to do a little bit about with networking. So someone is asking, did we all go through the standard application process, or were we hired through networking? So how did we land these roles? How did you land these roles?
I can go first. Actually, neither for me. HubSpot usually doesn't use external recruiters and third-party like recruiting companies, but at the time they were really struggling in 2015 finding a solution engineer, and I was in the market and I was approached by an external agency, and that's how I got familiar with HubSpot actually. So sorry if it doesn't fit any of those two markets.
I could go next. For me, it was networking. I was working with an engineer who was at Fidelity, and then she was the one that like said, "Oh, you should come take a look at this company," and just recommended me. So, and then I went from there.
Okay, how for you, Cindy?
I am the opposite. I did the research. HubSpot in 2020 was voted #1 in Glassdoor. Most of us know that at this point. And so as I was researching tech companies to apply for, of course, you see the #1 company. You're like, absolutely. I read our cultural code multiple times and couldn't believe that that would potentially be a company I could work for, and just said, this is where I'm going to be joining, and did plenty of research and before my interviews for sure. So yeah, for me, it was the opposite. Didn't get reached out, but I'm here and excited to, continue with HubSpot for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you, Yesenia. I also did through the standard process as a person put it in here, application and all that. And I'll jump in here because that was a question from someone asking me specifically for tips that I have on making that transition from education to tech. And I think this will also apply to any of you making the transition from any other area. But for me, it really took some time to figure out what my niche was, what could I bring to tech that I did really well already. And for me, that boiled down to two things, which one is facilitation, facilitation sessions, whether in person or Zoom like this, but also onboarding. So in my most recent role in higher education, I was onboarding, college students to the university. So, orientation. So when I, lo and behold, put that search on LinkedIn, guess what came up first? This position that I am, hired to do here at HubSpot now. And I, like Yesenia, I couldn't believe what I was reading about HubSpot. And I was like, is this real? Let me look more into that. And I just, but I went through the process, interviewing, doing presentations, and about a month later, here I am, after the process. So I think just in general, know what your transferable skills are, know what kind of your niche expertise is, so again, for me, it was facilitation, onboarding, I kind of wanted to do that. So that's definitely one way to do it. Yeah. So moving along here, someone asked, as a first gen and English being their third language, they've always struggled with networking. So we've already talked a lot about that too. So can you all talk a little bit more about how maintaining relationships after the initial conversation? So what do you do after that? Hi, Senya, nice to meet you. I read your blog post. What now? What comes next? How would you approach that?
Oh, that's a great question. I do actually get a lot of Slacks and network and outreach.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I am naturally a bubbly person. So, and I'm pretty open to meeting and mingling and networking with anyone. But I normally just kind of follow it up with like a, hey, could you have 10, 15 minutes to chat? Would love to chat about your role. Idealistically, I think a lot of people are more than willing to, I think we think they're not more than willing to give us 10 or 15 minutes of their time, but especially here at HubSpot, I've noticed that everyone is willing to join in and give you like some feedback on their role and help you. I'm consistently kind of helping different teammates grow within their roles and see how they can help in and out of HubSpot. Just because I think that we have to pay it forward. For me, that's a big thing. Paying it forward is important. I am first gen in tech. I would love to see more people joining, whether they're first gen or not, to be quite honest. And I think it means having those conversations, networking. So not feeling like you're bombarding them with multiple different messages, of course, but giving them some space to say, hey, like, could we meet for 10, 15 minutes? Would love to pick your brain. I think would love to understand a little bit more about what you do. And some questions like, how could I get involved in the tech space would be great, I think.
Can I add something to what I just said? I think that's extremely important, and to take it even a step further, being intentional with your outreach, just connecting for the sake of connecting. Like everybody's like, for the majority, like people are willing to take time out of their day and just sit down and talk to you and help you, but they can't give you the answers that you expect. They can't give you the solution that you expect. The solution has to come from you. So tips and tricks, it works. Sharing the experience, it works. But especially if you do it with a lot of people, you notice that sometimes people like have the tendency of like, okay, the networking is going to land me a new job. No, is bringing something to the table, showing that you're interested, curious to learn, and also like just being intentional in what you bring to that conversation. That is where, when you build a network and you get something from that conversation. And this is something that, when you think about networking, or when people think about mentoring, or like finding a mentor, it is important to just be intentional. And that helps a lot, rather than just doing it because everybody should network.
Yeah. And we have a question here, continuing the same networking theme. So have there been any moments when interviewing or networking that being first gen caused hindrances because of lack of resources, and how did you try to work with it? So was that cause any issues for you? A good question.
I'll give my 2 cents. I do think that people that know me and people that work with me, they hear me say these a lot, but you can only control what you can control the controllables. So unfortunately, life is not an even field. It should be, but it's not sometimes. And if you are the person that like is in front of like some obstacles and challenges, I can speak for myself. I've been in front of a lot of those. I had 2 options. Blame my environment or work extra hard to prove everybody that they were wrong, and I can get just as much as other people, if not more. That has personally served me well, and is a constant motivator for my own personal and professional growth. So my advice to the person that asked the question is like, control what you can control. Just show them again, prove them wrong, and then try to do the extra research, try to go the extra mile. And if you still don't get the role and you still don't get it, at least you give it your all and keep doing, and tomorrow you'll get it, or the next day. Like, it's just a matter of time, but you will land that situation, that opportunity that you want.
Alessio, for sharing that. So we have 2 questions here that I'm going to combine into one because they both deal with imposter syndrome. So someone says currently hoping to transition fields and they're currently in higher education. I feel you there. And have noticed that the imposter syndrome kicks in during interviews. So any tips on how to get better interviewing and kicking that to the curb? And then let me just find the other one here. Yeah, so just the other one is also similar. Tips and tricks on overcoming imposter syndrome as a first-gen, non-traditional, hire younger and younger looking hire. So just in general, let's, what's been your experience? Yesenia, I see you have your mic open.
Yes. So just like Alicio said, like doing the work, building out, like I do have a mentor, and I believe there was a question about mentoring. I have a mentor here at HubSpot. And one of the biggest things that has helped me overcome imposter syndrome is building out my superpowers, understanding like my skill set. So defining what that looks like, defining what that is, right? So when I go into that mindset, like, am I supposed to be here? Do I belong here? Like, wait, no, these are my superpowers. This is what value I bring to the business. This is why my unique perspective to the business can help me propel and grow HubSpot. So superpower is something that's super important, has been important in my journey recently. And I think that like writing that down. So when we're going through imposter syndrome, like knowing keeping that at the forefront, if that means keeping a sticky note for you to have that daily to that level, I think you should do that, because that's going to help you kind of understand like you do belong here. You do have the skill sets to be a part of that, but doing the work, like he said, beforehand and understanding what that means for sure.
Okay, Yesenia. Anyone have anything to add? Mohammed, any thoughts? Alessio?
I was thinking about it. I was like, how do I get rid of it? Because I think it still happens. Like no matter what, no matter how far I go, it's still, but it won't go away. Which is I think of it as like it's a good kind of like check and like grounding level that like, okay, you climbing, but oh, wait a minute. Like sometimes I feel like I'm not 100% there, but no, I am here. There are reasons why I'm here. Remember like what you went through to get there, and then just continue your way. Yeah. So, but I think it still happens. You will. It's fine.
Yeah, and even as you know, as we're changing functions, right, or internal mobility, like when you know, like those are real too, even within the organization for sure. Yeah. Thank you both for sharing that. And Yesenia, you segued into some mentoring questions here. Someone asks, is a quote mentor someone HubSpot assigns, or do you find one yourself and build your relationship with them? Another one asks, if we actually have I guess a formal mentor program at HubSpot, or how have you gone about finding those mentors? And I maybe start with you, Yesenia, and if anyone else wants to add.
Yeah, absolutely. So transparently, I never really had a mentor before HubSpot. I just kind of like went about my path. Didn't realize how important it is to actually have a mentor, someone that's going to help you, guide you into, transparently, I'm great at 1 to 2 years of growth within my own career, but then 5 to 7 years out, I don't have necessarily a plan. So my mentor has helped me guide me through that. HubSpot does have several mentoring programs, I believe. I know one of them is the Rise program that I am a part of right now, where I did get my first mentor. And if you're not a part of that program, that's fine. That's not the only route. I'm actually helping right now a teammate find a specific mentor. What does growth look like for her specifically, and how we can find her that mentor. I might not know everybody at HubSpot, but I think that I can help her navigate through that. So having a mentor for me has been super important in helping me guide through the next part of my career. And I think that person allocates that time to help you. So it's like the opposite. You can actually make it. I feel like my mentor gives me time where I can get all my thoughts, and she just brings it back to me and like, okay, this is who you are. This is how you can get, like, how do we think through this process? So it's been really helpful for me for sure.
And Yesenia, I love how you are already paying back and helping others already find. That was so impressive. Thank you for doing that. That's really great. Yeah. Alessio, there's a question here specifically for you. Since you mentioned vulnerability as a great way to connect, Have you ever been worried that people see it as a weakness or somehow do not take you seriously?
Yeah, totally. That's why it took me a long time to be vulnerable in some cases. I'll give you an example. So I lost my dad 2 years ago, and that obviously it was the beginning of 2020. Actually, it was almost 2 years ago, and it was a tough year. And honestly, like work really helped me, and I decided at some point that I just wanted to write a LinkedIn article about it. I thought a lot about what people may think of me. I thought a lot about what people may, see you as weak or whatever. At the end of the day, you can't control what people think of you. All you can control is, again, is how you feel with yourself. And I'm at a point in my life where if people want to believe whatever they want to believe based on the perception that they have of me, I can try to change it, but to some extent, I can't change who I am to kind of like just fight over that, change in perception of others. And so I've learned that it gives me more joy and more freedom to be vulnerable and be okay with it and just let go. There is more positive that comes from it than negative. And I'm sure that there are some people that have thought of like, oh, these guys is either just, trying to get attention or whatever. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's fine. So my advice is, again, it's do whatever makes you feel comfortable and do whatever makes you feel like it's the true you. Good things will come from it. And if people will not really understand that, that's okay. That means that you're not supposed to either work with those people or be in that environment, or just like it's better losing them than finding them.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how you model the way by being vulnerable in your answer right now to show that, and really love how it really resonates. Like once you don't have why control the uncontrollable, right? Like that seems to be a theme with you, and we appreciate hearing that.
I also know that, like, especially people that, again, they're immigrants or that's not their first, like they work with live in a different language or whatever it is, especially like this community, we are so incredibly harder on ourselves than anybody else. It's the environment, but it's also us, it's our culture. Like I'd really say to myself out loud, and I need to remind that because I still do it a lot, is to be kind to myself and to be fair. And if I don't do it, nobody else around me will ever do it. So that's why I keep saying it, and I keep like preaching it to myself as much as I can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alessio. So in the next few minutes here, Mohammed, I'm coming to you with these questions. So how is diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, DEIB, intertwined in your daily role?
Well, it's intertwined because since I believe 2019, we started doing this thing where we try to do diversity and inclusion talks. So kind of set up some meetings where we talk about a topic that touches the INB as a team and discuss it. So as part of my role as a tech lead, I mentor engineers, but also like I got to find ways to facilitate those conversations, get everyone to feel comfortable discussing topics. So it's very important, and I'm happy that like HubSpot really puts a lot of effort into it, and we get material, we get a lot of stuff that's just like, you want to talk about this, see that like everything is set up in a way that like it helps me with doing that facilitation job, yeah, it's very important. It's a day-to-day thing. Everyone should feel comfortable bringing an authentic self, bringing back to what Alessio said, like their own true self to a meeting with the team, and just sharing how they feel, and just having the team be accepting and listening.
Thank you, Mohammed. The next one here. So what advice would you give people looking to break into tech, but they have expectations themselves, or maybe even external pressures, to not take a step back or maybe a lateral step in their career? So, like, yeah, so you're at that point where you feel like, you might be a little bit farther along, right? And you're worried about taking that step back or lateral. What do you have to say to that? Anybody?
So do you mean like you are say, okay, let's assume you're in a field and you're saying, okay, I'm going to take a step back. I need to go to another field or something. And
That's
you're
how
afraid
that's how I'm
because of the
understanding.
the
Yeah.
pressures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, when I hear that, and the only question that I ask the person is, are you happy? Like, are you happy? Are you finding joy in what you're doing, right? And that's the answer to that should tell them where they should go. Because at the end of the day, if you become a software engineer and you're writing code and it doesn't make you happy, then what are you doing? Honestly, like we're in this planet for so long, right? What are you doing? If something else makes you happy, then that's probably what you should explore and see why it makes you happy, and try to just find strength in that rather than forcing yourself to be somewhere where you're not. Because it's you, it's your life, and please at least aim to be good and to be happy where you are. And the one thing to just try is like, are you learning? If you're learning, then and you're happy, then yeah, please stay there. Keep on going there. That would be my advice there.
Mohammed, that was great.
Plus one on that. Just take the risk.
Snaps.
Jump.
So let's finish here with our last question. And I thought it was a good one to close us up, because folks are just interested in learning from us. What's been our best experience or moment here at HubSpot? So we would like to, Yesenia, let's start with you. What can you?
Great question. So
Right.
to pick it out, I used to be a business development representative here at HubSpot. When I decided to pivot to people operations, I was nervous to ask my direct leader manager what her opinion was. She had reached out to the team and let us know this opportunity was here, but more than anything, I did feel supported. And I think that to me, that was the best moment to know that I slacked my manager, and instead of saying, oh, let's talk about it, it was an immediate, oh my God, you would be great at this job. Like, absolutely, let's figure out how to pivot you into that direction. Not thinking about how could it affect her team, how can it affect her. It wasn't about her at that moment. It was about what could potentially help me grow in what could make me, to Mohammed's point, what would make me happier in the long term. So I felt, to me, that was the best moment I've ever had in my career, where someone did not think about themselves at that moment, just immediately saw, hey, like this could be a great path for you, and I'm here to support you. Let's get you prepped, ready to go at all points. So I'm really thankful for that first manager here at HubSpot, for sure.
Great. I'll add that my best moment so far has just really been joining you guys. I think I found my people. I think I found the group that I belong to, and it's been, a long time coming. I'm just so ecstatic to be here and for being able to be part of the group. I mean, I just love meeting other HubSpotters and putting time on folks' calendar, and everybody's like, yes, let's meet. And it's just, everybody's so welcoming. What about you, Mohammed?
I had to think long and hard about this one. I think my favorite moment was when I think it was my first year at HubSpot. There was this like just mingle and chat between engineers, and I was talking to this guy, and we were talking for like half an hour, and I assumed, he was another person that was relatively new to the company, and then we were chatting about challenges and everything. And when I finished, I was telling my other teammate that like, oh, I was talking to this guy, like he's a cool engineer, whatever. Turns out that guy was Whitney, and he's currently our CTO. And I was like, wait a minute. So I just spent this time trying to explain to this guy all these things, when he is probably the number 3 or 4 in the company, and it blew my mind, right? And that just opened my eyes. It's like, if I had known what his role before, I probably would have been scared and like not talk to him. But because I just did that, and the fact that he was open and just chill and just to discuss and didn't tell me anything about his role until I knew for myself, it was something. Yeah, just brought a smile to me. I was like, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, our leaders are humble.
Great story. What about you, Alessio?
So probably my proudest moment, best moment experience at HubSpot has been at some point in 2019. I was manager and was hiring for our first LATAM SE out of Colombia. And I had a candidate that was actually like based in North America that went for the role. And basically I had two strong candidates. I hired somebody for in Bogota, in Colombia, but these other candidates really liked it. And I had headcount to hire in North America. And so I went to these feedback interview meetings, and I basically said, would you consider taking the job, but for North America? And the first reaction that I got from that person, again, she's also first gen in tech, and she's also like, the pretty much like first generation and living in the US from Colombia. She was like, am I good enough for that role? I was like, well, you did the same interview process. The interview process was in English, same interview process as everybody else. And why wouldn't you? And that honestly was, I grew a lot from that moment. Also, I gave that opportunity for that person to like step into a market that she didn't think she was good enough for. When instead she was, and that opened my eyes about like my passion for like mentoring and coaching people, especially people that come from like me, like immigrants or minorities. And that person then was part of my team, and she then got promoted to like a senior person, and now as of October she became manager for a North America team. So that has been my proudest moment for sure in my career.
About impact. And I think that was apparent through all of your stories on the impact you've had on HubSpot and HubSpotters. And so I just want to take this moment to thank you, Yesenia, Alessio, and Mohammed, for all your insights today. I want to thank all of our amazing audience. You all had some really good questions. I haven't seen questions this good in a long time. So give it up for yourselves for sure. And and thank you for joining us for the kickoff of First Gens in Tech. We're so proud to be hosting this event. Thank you for being here. We've got a ton more to share with you tomorrow. In the meantime, make sure to connect with us at the First Gens in Tech Slack community. Introduce yourselves over there if you haven't already. And we'll see you tomorrow for more First Gens in Tech. Have a good night, everyone.
Everyone.
Good night.